Oh,
Thank
there. Thank you. Yeah.
you.
So it says, what is happening here is that television is altering the meaning of being informed by creating a species of information that might properly be called disinformation. And then,
Oh my God, Stapleton's about to come in. I'm about to admit him.
Oh.
I think he just talked.
Maybe he's in someone else's call, but then he's just keeping it there so he can go into ours quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, we're probably gonna be done by the time he comes in.
Wait.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Stape.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing all right.
That's great.
How are you?
Good.
Pretty good.
Great.
Okay, so I'll just read my quote. It says, what is happening here is that television is altering the meaning of being informed by creating a species of information that might properly be called disinformation. And then disinformation does not mean false information. It means misleading information, misplaced, irrelevant, fragmented, or superficial information. And so that whole chapter was almost talking about that. It was kind of how a lot of times events in the news are just taken out of context or just blown out of proportion. And he kind of blames the fact that news has kind of been formatted into this entertainment aspect. And people now are placing more value in just that entertainment aspect of TV. And so the people often don't realize when they watch the news is that facts are taken out of context, so they're just left with being ignorant and not even knowing it.
Yeah, I had that same quote. And I was thinking about how earlier he had talked about how people were just reading like headlines and how the news stories were moving so quickly. So people are ill-informed and they know like the irrelevant information rather than information that's meaningful. So a lot of people know about like pop culture information and news, but they don't even know like who's the Secretary of State or something important like that.
Exactly, yeah. And that kind of goes along with the credibility thing where he was talking about how the people in the news or in news articles, they choose kind of more things that would look more appealing or sound more interesting by using like videos and pictures, when that doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely credible. Just they find some like interesting video that could have been taken out of context.
Yeah.
I don't know if you said that you focused more on the first chapter, or really, I guess, the 7th chapter, but my quote is from the second one where he talked about religion and then, like the broadcasting on TV. And my quote is from page 119. And it's where he talks about that television, the screen itself, has a strong bias toward a psychology of secularism. The screen is so saturated with our memories of profane events, so deeply associated with the commercial and entertainment world, that it's difficult for it to be recreated as a frame for sacred events. And then I went on, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. And I really related to that because I've noticed that, and I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but churches in America aren't exactly like other churches. They are very entertainment oriented. Like there's a Hope Church in Apex, which there's a coffee shop in it and a basketball court. And to me, that makes no sense. But like to some people, that's important to them, that is connecting to the church. But for me, that really is more about business and entertainment than it is about religion.
Yeah, definitely. And like how he was talking about TV or like sermons online, like if you were to like actually like sit there and watch one, it's a lot of like entertainment trying to keep the audience engaged, because as he said, they like the pastors know that someone can click off really quickly, especially because religion is kind of like, well, sermons are kind of seen as like boring, so they try to really like entertain and keep the audience engaged.
Yeah, and I think you can apply that to a lot of other things, obviously not just religion. Like think about how many times you've watched a sad video about, I guess, like hungry kids in Africa, and then once it's over, you turn it off and then you keep going on with your life. So, or like think about being a parent. You can't just choose to be a parent in the morning and then you get tired of it. You decide that you're not going to be a parent. So to me, it doesn't make sense for you to be able to just turn it off or just switch the channel.
Yeah, but I agree with that, but I also think like nowadays there's no possible way that these people could make like a segment about these serious issues and everyone like watch it and take it seriously. Like I feel like by shortening it and kind of making it entertaining, it's sometimes beneficial because not everybody's going to have like the patience to go and listen to these topics. So at least you get a little bit of information, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you have to choose like what you want to sacrifice. Do you want to be really true to something, or do you want to like get a little bit of it once in a while but actually understand it?
Yeah, so I have another quote. It was talking about how it was kind of what you were saying, how they were reporting something very serious, but then in the Now This, the chapter, they kind of talked about how commercials, they would just interrupt these very serious segments and it would leave people not even having emotion or have feeling towards these things. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, it says, we have become so accustomed to its discontinuities that we are no longer struck dumb, as any sane person would be, by a newscaster who, having just reported that a nuclear war is inevitable, goes on to say that he will be right back after this word from Burger King, and then it goes on. So I thought that was kind of funny because that is true, but I mean, like, I'm not sure if anyone would pay attention to like a lot of news segments, and I guess they have to make money somehow, so like they have commercials. But I get what he's saying there, how like it just seems he makes it seem like a light topic when it should be talked more about or focused more on.
Yeah, but at
yeah,
the
and
same
I
time,
think
you can go.
go ahead. um, like I don't think people have enough patience. If the news segments were longer, people I don't think would have the patience to like sit there and actually watch it. So they know like to get their views up, they have to like move through things quickly to cover ground, and they have to put like appealing stuff into it to appeal to their audience.
Yeah, I think at the same time, even though it's important to take things seriously, let's say there's something going on, like right now, the coronavirus. Do you really need something to be talked about constantly and constantly? Like sometimes you just need a little entertainment to get your mind off of it because really there's nothing you can do. Like you can't go and, help out all the sick people. So sometimes you just have to sit back and, let it take its course.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Can I just say my quote right now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Page 110, where he talks about George Orwell and how like there's no government that's forcing us to think this way, and how this is the culture that we created and all that. But yeah, I just found that really interesting because like we're doing this to ourselves. We're letting the media like just talk about the nuclear war from back then or whatever between the Cold War back then between Russia and America. Just we allow it to be swept under the rug, like yeah, just to be followed by a Burger King commercial.
Yeah, that's true. We're like not really doing anything. And I think we're not doing anything because it's like always known. Like we grew up with technology. So it would be kind of hard to like let it go a little bit because it's so immersed in our culture.
Yeah, technology is basically our culture right now.
Camille, was the article yours?
Yes. Yeah, we can start talking about.
Because I read it, but what was your reasoning for choosing it? Because it wasn't directly related to
Yeah,
what
I
we
couldn't find one that was related to television news specifically because I guess people don't usually watch as much television as they used to. But this one I was trying to connect it to how like one small like slip up in facts or in misinformation can lead to a big chain reaction kind of. And so the whole thing started when in the article one of the scientists, it was about him predicting how many people would be infected with COVID-19, and he was saying around 2 million of the 96 million people who would get infected might need intensive care, and half of those might need ventilators. And that led to this whole thing about we needed 1 million ventilators right now. And this article kind of shows how that was false. And articles were publishing things about how we needed the 1 million ventilators, where in fact it was talking about we might need them if this many people get infected. And they later talked about this interview where a CNN host was talking to the White House advisor, Peter Navarro, about the ventilators, and she was asking him, are we going to be able to get these 1 million ventilators? And he didn't even know about that. And so it was just this whole spread of misinformation, and it just blew up on the media.
I think could use that to kind of argue against Postman, because you could say that you don't always need to be reporting on news and things, because then people start to panic and they start making things up.
Yeah, that's true. Especially now in this pandemic, people are more vulnerable than usual, and they can just believe anything they see on the media, whether it be about the ventilators or just like symptoms or false cures or stuff like that. So yeah, now it's really important to have credible things in the media.
Yeah, it's true. Like now people are like really starting to believe anything. Like you can see something on social media and it's being reposted so many times, but if you actually sit there and like read it, it makes no sense. But because people are in such like a panic and they're uncertain of what's going to happen in the future and what's going to happen with this virus, they're just being like, they're just believing everything.
Yeah, it's just like the Postman said about how people would read like just the title or something, but won't dig further into it other than just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Do you guys like want to go back a little? Because I
To
don't think we really hit like the later stuff the other day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What chapter?
I don't
Like
think we talked about the Peekaboo World chapter.
6th chapter, I think it is. I don't think we really talked about that, like part 2. Yeah, I think chapter 6.
The Age of Show Business.
Yeah, or 5. Let me see real quick. Okay, so on page 74, I don't know what chapter it's in, but I said for countless Americans, seeing, not reading, became the basis for believing. And so I saw this like with my own grandparents because they grew up in a time where like technology wasn't really there as much as it is now. And so they like always like see me on my phone, or I like tell them something like news that I saw on my phone, and they always ask me like, did you even read into it? Like, you can't just see something and believe it automatically. So that's when I read that, that's what I thought of.
Oh yeah, I tend to do that all the time. I kind of like just read the headlines or on social media if they have some kind of like breaking news. I just tend to believe it. But yeah, after reading this, I kind of feel like now I should go more into it. But it's kind of been one of my habits. So yeah, that was an interesting quote.
Yeah.
When I was reading this chapter, I was thinking about these videos that I saw on YouTube, and it was, I don't remember the name of the show, but it was recordings from, I think, a 1970s show, and people were talking about how strange it is to see people on a talk show where there isn't any jokes, there isn't skits, they're literally just sitting there and talking normally, which I don't think we see that as much. Like nowadays, if you go to a late night show, it's usually, all about like the laughs, and they show pictures of the celebrity that's on. It's never just like a regular conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people would like actually sit there and watch it and be serious about it just because of how other shows are now and what they're used to.
I guess you could always argue that it's not the people that don't want those kind of shows, because there's still people that listen to podcasts, for example, which are obviously solely based on rhetoric, kind of like the speeches, because you can't see the people. But I think it's just what I guess Hollywood has decided that they need to make. But I don't think if they made serious TV shows, people wouldn't watch them.
Yeah, I think like
But
oh, sorry. You.
but like if they made serious TV shows, like you said, they wouldn't get the traction or popularity of that of like CSI, whatever. Or yeah. Camille, what were you gonna say?
It was kind of like that, just like the entertainment. I guess they're targeted towards a certain audience, but if people were really interested in the topic, they would go out and research that on their own and find their own information.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about the chapter 8 more, or do you want to stay like
Chapter 8, was that the religion one or the?
Yeah, it was
yeah.
the religious one.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm not a very religious person, so I didn't know like how this applied to me, but I do get what Bogey was saying before, and he was talking about how there was that TV show with the guy just this talking, and it kind of he added humor to his sermon, but it kind of took away the meaning and religious aspect of it because he added the like jokes and stuff to it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. That was basically what I took from that whole chapter.
Yeah. I feel like he was trying to use the shift in religion as like some big comparison to like the broader TV spectrum now. How we went from like very serious and non-entertainment based shows to more outlandish and kind of more entertainment based shows and news outlets and all that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was kind of a shift from the other chapters where he was talking about like stuff like the Lincoln Douglas debates where they would go on stage and debate for like hours each, and the audience would sit there and they would still be engaged. And then now it's come a long way from where these past couple of chapters where they were talking about how even like serious topics like religion or serious news events are kind of made into these like comedic segments to get the people's attention, because we tend to value like the entertainment over the actual facts, because nobody's gonna have the time or patience to sit and listen to lectures for like 3 hours like the debates.
What you
Yeah,
guys
I
are
thought,
talking about right now, and I think this also is something that popped into my head when Bogey was talking about the church with the coffee shop and the basketball court in it. Uh, my family's Catholic, and so I was raised Catholic. And when my parents were like children, the Catholic Mass, like the service every Sunday, was completely in Latin. Like they just went and nobody knew what anybody was saying, or the priest at least was saying, because the whole thing was in like a dead language. And I thought church was boring when I was a child. I can only imagine how bored they must have been. Like just Latin Mass. Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because in Bulgaria there isn't any chairs, so you have to stand straight the whole time, and the whole time I mean, it's called a pope in Bulgarian. He's speaking in Old Slavonic, so you can't understand anything. But at the same time, like, does it make sense to spend the whole day there? And he's saying things that you can understand, but it's not, I don't know, I feel like it's not always super related to religious things. But so that's why I always thought like American churches were very weird, at least the ones that I've seen. I lived in South Carolina for 2 years, and there absolutely everything revolves around the church. All your friends, every single meeting and outing, and there's concerts, there's barbecues, and that's just something that I'm not used to. So to me it seemed kind of like fake or forced, but I guess that's just the way they're used to doing things there.
yeah. I don't know. I felt the religion chapter was like a little out of place. I just like he went from like talking to news shows and stuff, and then went to religion, and then after like I started reading a little, and he doesn't really touch on religion as much, and it was a very short chapter. So I was kind of confused on like I saw the purpose of it, but I don't know. I think he just placed it there.
I think
Oh,
I don't know, what is the word for it? Like the TV sermons. What was the word?
Oh, televangelism?
Yeah, so I think that's a very 80s thing. Like they have things now obviously online, but just on TV just reminds me of the 80s. So maybe that's why it seems like out of place to us.
Yeah, that's
That's a
true.
good point, yeah.
that's why I had trouble finding articles, because like a lot of these things are talking about like the television and then the sermons on television. So a lot of stuff now is just revolving around social media and stuff. But yeah.
All right, guys, I have to jump into another one of these at 12:30, but it was good hearing you guys. Interesting conversation. I don't know. I'll check in another time. Have a good day.
You too.
Back to.
You too. Oh,
Oh my god. Like,
dude, I was like scared to talk in there.
I was talking nonsense for like words I don't even know.
Oh my god.
he should have went to the last one. The other one was there was more to talk about.
Like, we had a lot more information to talk about. Here we were trying to like scramble to find something.
Came at the worst one.
I wonder if he like genuinely finds this entertaining. I would not want to listen to 20 minutes of this.
Yeah.
How long does it have to be? 30 minutes?
Yeah, 30
Yeah.
to 45. So I guess that's
Oh.
fine.
We need questions.
Oh shoot.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah, let's
forgot.
just
Okay.
take time to think of those.
So questions. Let's think.
The religious
We
chapter.
could talk about like what he was saying, like how does like televising all these sermons and having these whatever televangelism shows, how does that like take away the meaning or the feeling behind these the religion in general?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And
I was
then
gonna
we can
say,
do something about.
how does Postman use televangelism to show the shift of culture in America? But yeah.
Mhm.
Mm, what would the other question be about? Is it like something about misinformation or credibility?
You said what?
We can have a question about 7 and then chapter 8.
Yeah, like the first one was a lot about like the news and how misinformation and the credibility of
Mhm.
the news. So I don't know. Um,
Wait, do we have a question right now?
yep. Oh wait, are you typing it?
I don't know who's typing it.
Oh,
That's what I
sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, wait, I could type it. So
Okay.
we talked about how does he use the
Televangelism.
how do you even spell that?
Um,
I think it's gonna. There we go. And we need another one. You supposed to do that short, I guess.
What would we say for chapter 7? Did we talk about now this or
yeah.
I mean like the phrase now this? I don't know.
Yeah, we could do something. Like that.
We could do something about like the moving around topics or like credibility.
We could say like how does or when the news focuses on the entertainment value, how does that ruin their credibility or like spread misinformation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, why does Stapleton join the calls when he's just gonna listen to the recordings?
Maybe he'll just like not listen to this.
Yeah, he'll probably like skip through it, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure like he's actually gonna sit there and listen to this.
And then what should the meeting name be?
I can think of it if you guys don't want to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not creative at all, so I like your podcast name though. That's really funny. Okay, and I'll just add more information to the artifact, and then we should be good.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys ready to end it?
Okay, bye.
All right, I think we're good. We have the 2 questions, and then we just have to put best comment.
We have all the questions, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
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 Bye, guys.